Welcome, folks, to the online launch of the new book, An Accidental Adventurer. Thanks so much for joining, whether it's live at the moment or whether you're joining a little bit later and watching it after it's been recorded. Thank you so much for showing your interest. It means the absolute world to me. So really the summary of this evening is just to share a little bit more about the book, how it came about, and share with you a video that I've put together with some kind of unseen footage of the Elliptigo challenge and all of that kind of great stuff. There's been a ton of Q&As that have come in from the launch team who have already read the book and written some really interesting reviews of it, and so we can kind of talk about that as well, and for anyone who hasn't got a book yet and who might be interested. So yeah, it's very exciting. The book came about, I was actually doing a talk in Words by the Water, a book festival, about a completely different book. I talk about kindness within the workplace and how we can transform workplaces and leaderships and culture. And when I talk about it, I obviously talk about all my adventures that I have done. And somebody in the audience asked me a question and said, "Oh, have you written a book about all your adventures over the last 10 years?" And I said, "No, I haven't, but that seems like a very good idea." And so I went about writing The Accidental Adventurer. And there is a bit of a spoiler alert here. I do not have an accident at all within this book. But interestingly, as the book was in its final edit, I did come off the Elliptigo. And for those that know me will know that I came off and broke my jaw and damaged all my chin. And so now the metal has just come off. I feel that maybe I jinxed myself by calling it The Accidental Adventurer. I'll be much more careful in naming my books, I think, from now on. There's been quite a journey in how I have ended up becoming this accidental adventurer, and maybe the worst adventurer of all time. I want to share with you. Let's see how easily I'm going to be able to do this. Yes. I'm trying out a brand new setup today. So I wanted to show you everything and put together some new things that people won't necessarily have seen. I have done a number of different challenges. The first major challenge, there were a lot of small adventures that I went on, but the first major challenge happened in 2018, and I cycled across America from San Diego to St. Augustine. Now, you may think, well, that's it might be impressive to some, and to some it wouldn't be that impressive. But I hadn't owned a bike in 20 years. And so the idea of going across America to many people who knew me meant that there was a lot of and doubt that came in. It was, I learned the day before I was about to fly out how to change a tire. I bought my bike from Gumtree with very little knowledge. And if there is ever proof that we all have the ability to do anything that we put our minds to, the fact that I made it to St. Augustine in one piece is definitely evidence that we can do anything that we put our minds to. The next challenge was in 2019 was the walk from Swannage to Gretna Green. Now, it was 500 miles. There was a lot of conversation about the old Pretenders song, "I'll do 500 miles, but I won't do any more," or words to that effect. I decided really to do it because I had very little funds to do any sort of adventure. It had to be big enough to, and I talk about my reasons in a moment, but it had to be big enough. And I wanted to visit schools along the way and talk about kindness and talk about the impact and talk about the challenges that I had been doing over the last 10 years and my own personal journey, which is all documented within the book. I want to say that there was some sort of plan around this, but really what I did was I thought, well, if I travel from the south to the north, how many miles is that? And I kind of plotted it out. I thought, well, that's 500 miles. That seems doable. And then I zigzagged based on schools that I was meeting along the way and that I was working with to deliver an important message. And that was about it. I packed a bag and left. There was very little training, which I don't necessarily advise, but there were reasons, and I could talk all about them. They are in the book, about why I tend not to get much training in beforehand. But yeah, so I made it to Gretna Green and I got a train home in a day after spending 5 weeks on the road, walking from Swannage to Gretna Green. And I'll talk about in a moment some of the things that I learned on these different trips. I decided in 2020, although the trip had changed a couple of times because of Brexit, because of COVID, to go through every city in the UK on a stand-up Elliptigo bike, which if anyone hasn't seen it already, you will see one in a moment. I forget, I think it's 67 cities there or thereabouts for those interested. Not every location that has a cathedral is classed as a city, which is interesting, and vice versa. Sorry. So there was different places that didn't have cathedrals that were cities. How did I plot this route? I took this image. When I look at other adventurers and what they do, I think, wow, that's impressive. I'm constantly learning. But me, I did a dot to dot of these cities using this image, thinking, how can I make it from one city to the next? And what I ended up doing was zigzagging my way up the country. And I'll share some of those, some of the route planning that I did. So I, as you can see, there was part one, and I kind of zigzagged up. Part two, and I got up to Ireland, to the edge, just to go over to Ireland. Part three, I had done Northern and Southern Ireland in a loop, and then did part four, and I'll talk about part five in a minute. What actually happened was, and it'll probably be a question that comes up, I was doing this during the year of, we're still dealing with COVID right now, but it started in the August and we weren't in any sort of shutdown. We went back into a full lockdown by the December, and so I was managing those challenges along the way. But one of those was that Southern Ireland said we don't want anybody else in here, and so I had to not do that route and adapt my route accordingly to reach the world record, which was going to be the 5,000 miles that I was hoping to do. When I was a little bit stuck at the end, I thought, how am I going to reach this 5,000 mile target? And Chris, who was helping to organize it, he said, well, you could just do a giant kindness across England. And he said it quite flippantly, I think. He didn't quite expect me to go, that's a brilliant idea, let's do that. And so that's what I did. I wrote kindness across England. So that is me on an Elliptigo, and you can see that there are a few kinks. There's a kink on the I and the N, and these were a few road closures along the way, and things were a little bit wobbly, and they weren't meant to be, but that's how it went along. And so that was the route that was undertaken. To make up for the fact that I couldn't do island, I did a big heart-shaped at the end of the route. So I did kindness, and then I did a big heart shape. And for anybody interested, on World Kindness Day, we are encouraging people within Sunshine People tribes to make their own heart. Obviously not as big as this, because it's a bit silly, but yeah. Cycling across America was extremely tough because I didn't have any mindset for it, really. Some incredible stories came off the back of going across America. But what I learned was that you really can do anything that you put your mind to. This strength to break down the goals, make anything possible. When I looked at it, and I considered when I was in San Diego that I had to go 3,000 miles on a bike that I had barely trained on, I had bought 6 weeks before on Gumtree, seemed impossible. But breaking it all down into, well, I've just got to go 10 miles. And if I go 10 miles, then I'll be moving forwards. And it was an incredible lesson for myself, but also meant that I was able to achieve the target. What I do within the book is I entwine the stories between the Elliptigo challenge, which is the thread that combines the entire book, but has the stories and the timeline of the cycle across America and those learnings. When I did the walk, I had a bag on my back and nothing else really for 5 weeks. I relied on the kindness of strangers, and so it's very humbling to have to ask people for help and rely on them. There were moments when I thought, this is it's hard to ask people for help. I'm used to being pretty self-reliant. I was brought up in a family where you put food on the table yourself, you go out and work, you just do everything yourself. You don't need to rely on people. So when I went out there saying, actually, I'm going to rely on people to put me up and feed me along the way, it felt hugely uncomfortable. But what happened along the way was this incredible lesson about being okay with accepting kindness from others, because I was then, which I didn't realize at the time, allowing somebody to be kind, which was supporting their own mental health and making them feel better. I was feeling better because I was getting this connection, and I was getting food, of course, and somewhere to sleep. But I was making friends and having connections. And it's so easy for us to go, oh, no, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to bother you. It's okay. I'll leave you to it. But what I discovered on this walk was the power of human connection, the power of us accepting the kindness from strangers, the kindness from neighbors, and the power that has to change communities. Really, it was a huge lesson for me personally, but I think the people that came on the ride with me. This is the Elliptigo for anybody who hasn't seen it. It is a stand-up bike, and this that I'm carrying was pretty much what I had with me most of the time. I had a bag on my back that was mostly had food and my laptop. I had a bag on the front, and I'd wash my clothes every night, and I was doing this for 4 months. And then there are 2 large bags that sit on the handlebars as well on it. It's interesting because I don't really talk about that within the book, about kind of what I carried and that sort of thing. There's a lot of stories within the book of the people that I met, the lessons I learnt, the highs and lows of the trips in their totality, of which there are too many. The book actually it started off at 120,000 words. It was double this book, and when I sent it off, I was so pleased. I was like, brilliant, that's it, I've done it. And so if there is any if there are any authors will be laughing right now who are listening to this. I got back from the editor some 6 pages of notes, not written in the margin, 6 pages of notes. And what I was letting myself down in most regard was I wanted to include every single person that I had met, and I wanted to include thank yous and, you know, all in the story. And what the editor said was, you just can't do that. And so it got kind of nailed down and taken down to 60,000 words. But yeah, it's been an incredible journey of all of these stories, but also the story of how and why I ended up doing all of these adventures. And there will be people who are watching this who already know some of that already. So I want to play you a short video that I've done for you guys, which is an exclusive, and there is video footage in here that I've never shared. I just kind of videoed it as I went along, really. So I'm just gonna have a look at the comments as well. Oh, hello, I've just seen all of those. I'm gonna have a look at those, but I want to just share with you this video that I've made, and I'm hoping that it will bring some interesting thoughts and a different viewpoint from those people that did follow me. And some of them are included, but there are some video footage that I never shared, and some little stories that come off the back of it. So I hope you enjoy.
My footprints in the sand, though I didn't know where I was going, it led me here to where I am. Maybe it's all part of a plan. Good morning, folks. It's 6:30 in the morning on day 46. I'm currently in Hull. I am off to I'm very tired. I've forgotten everything. Keeping us apart, but I'm making waves. I know we'll reach you wherever you are. And my love is alive in everything I do, singing in our darkest hours when the Good morning, folks. It's day 52. Every time I do this, we're a day closer. Good morning, folks. It's day 53. Woohoo! Is it day 53? This is going to be the ongoing thing of Good morning, folks. It's day I have no idea. Good morning. Take 134. Day 100 and 14? It's a struggle to know now.
'Cause there are horses running through my heart, healing my pain, healing my pain.
I have gone like 15 miles in 2 hours. I'm finding it incredibly hard today. I am so tired. And yeah, it's just hard. I think if I wasn't so tired, it wouldn't be quite as hard. Well, I know it's not as hard. But and I think, is it enough? What I'm doing, does it actually matter? I just feel really sad and very tired. I've still got 59 miles to go. It's just hard. So next place is 28 miles away. I'll stop in 3 Cocks. Probably get there 2-3 o'clock. And then I got the same distance again.
In our darkest hours, when the dawn breaks through, there are horses running through my heart.
Epic fail on the avoidance of hitting the rain. I'm only 4 miles in, which is gutting, and it's already started to rain quite badly, to the point that there's no point in cycling in this, because I will just so early on I'll just get, it would be really horrible for the next 60 miles that I've got to do. So I'm just going to stand under this tree for a little while until it's gone, or at least died down to the point that it's more of a shower rather than getting soaking wet. We'll see. Oh, gutted. Hi folks, day 78, with like 3,400 and something miles in, and I've just come up against this road closure. I left a little bit later this morning to avoid the rain, and I still got quite a long way to go, and I was really going up against the wire anyway, but yeah. So still in considerable pain, doing a 45-mile day today into Durham. I chose hills rather than distance today instead, so you can jump on the live tracker, and remember tomorrow I start writing kindness across England, so I hope you'll tune in for that. Now I'm going to go on my detour. Hope you're having a good Saturday, guys. See you soon. Bye.
But I'm making waves, I know we'll reach you wherever you are. And ooh, my love is alive in everything I do.
This absolutely sucks today. So I've come out from Aberdeen and it's brought me up this way, and there's like no other way to get around it. Absolutely sucks. I got a headwind all the way today of 16 miles per hour, and I don't need this. the next possible reroute is just coming up, so I'm going to make it up to there and get off this extremely busy road.
Every tiny little difference.
Okay, so I have come to up a very big hill to go through what was an army base, but have discovered that the red flag is up. So I'm now having to turn back around, go downhill, and make the eye of kindness a little bit shorter, which is a problem. But yes, I have only done an hour. I've done 8.5 miles barely, and it's all been a bit of a struggle today. It's day 84 and I came to do some videoing to say where I am, and yeah, you can tell my chain's come off a few times. Nice.
Running through my heart, healing my pain.
Wait a minute. Just a pause while another Arctic goes past me. This road is brutal. I don't think I quite knew what I was coming on to, which you can't always know. You know, some A roads are good and some aren't, and you kind of follow whatever the route planner tells you, right? And yeah, this is not for anybody cycling at all. Hiya folks, so as some of you will know if you watch the morning one, I had no accommodation sorted for today. I got to just over 2 miles before the end of my route, which is the top of the K, and not seen anything for ages. There was like a B&B about 10 miles previous that I didn't go and check out because I thought, well, that's quite a long way. And so I keep going and I think, oh, this is tough. And then, like a mirage, a Premier Inn arrives 2 miles before I'm about to finish. So all I've got to do is go down this quiet country road down there for 2 miles as far as I can to get me the longest top of the K as possible, and then I come back again. So I've got no backpack. Feels really weird, and I've got no front bag either because I've put it in the room. So I feel a bit light, like, oh, I'm missing something. So I don't quite know how it's going to be. It's been pretty windy today. So I'm hoping that it'll be okay without the weight. Okay guys, I'll see you later. Bye. So I left my accommodation at like 1:30 to try and avoid the rain. Oh, look at that big black cloud. I've hit the rain a couple of times, but I'm now in the position where just suffer it, do it, get on with it. But it's left me really short of time because, of course, sunset's at 6:30 now. Clocks are going to change real soon. So I've gone hell for leather. I've done 23 miles. Look at that, stunning. Done 23 miles. Just real quick without stopping. I'm averaging about 11.5, which is really good because I'm just going up one massive hill. I think I've got about 7 more miles of hill and I should come back down. Whoa! I don't know if you can see that in the background, but that's one hell of a rain cloud coming in. Oh, I got toothache. as well that doesn't help, but I'm determined to get through today, and the rain's going to come in. I just don't want to be riding in the dark particularly, but yeah. Okay guys, see you.
Crossing paths with faceless strangers. Maybe it's fate, but I still miss you.
Hiya folks, so we're last day of the 5,000 mile challenge that I've been doing for the last 114 days, all in aid of kindness and asking people to be a bit kinder. I'm currently 33 miles into a 100-mile day that's planned for today to finish on my way to Leicester from Northampton. It's going pretty hard. I've got some problems with the bike and Charis Elliptigo, the Elliptigo, and I think it's the chain. There might be a problem with the bearing, but it does mean that everything's a little bit harder than it probably needs to be. But Andrew is coming to come and ride the last 40 miles with me, and has organised the witnesses at the end and all that great stuff. But also, very conveniently, he is understands how to service the Elliptigo. So he's got a chain, we're going to put a new chain on it, and that'll happen at the 60-mile mark. So yeah, that will be a great thing. But I'm struggling. And it's so early on to be struggling, you know. If I was struggling at the 60-mile mark, it would just be, oh, that's fine, you know, I'm meeting Andrew now, it's a new leg. But yeah, to be struggling already is a challenge. So I'm going to have a little check-in mindset. I'm going to feed myself, have some more water, and then see if I can get going again. So wish me luck, folks. I hope everyone's having a great Sunday. And keep being kind.
You are alive in everything I do. Sing.
Oh, I hope that was, for some people who followed the challenge, they will have been reminded of so many parts of that. As I was writing the book, I just thought, oh, and there was this, and there was that, and there was this. And it was very hard to kind of bring in all the stories and all the lessons and which ones to pick. But thank you so much, because there's some of the launch team who have already read the book. And so your kind words about the book is very well received. Thank you. So the music in the background there was actually written by a guy called John Darley. And what happened was I ended up sharing my story with him. He was doing a project around writing songs about the soul. And so I started to share with him pretty much what's in this book. And he wrote this beautiful song that accompanied the background of that. When I came back from the Elliptigo ride, I went to go and see him live in London, and he did this amazing explanation of how horses came about. And I'd love to share the little thing that he did on stage that I just happened to capture really by chance.
Kindness, and it was off the back of a random act of kindness of a stranger, which she was in an awful place because she'd lost her husband. And she was on a ditch, and someone approached her and started talking to her about the healing power of horses. And then from that, it kind of just sparked a movement. And get emotional. Oh, yeah. Anyway. So, you know, he will never know. Do you know what I mean? He'll never know that his little act of kindness sparks this whole feeling. So we never know. Do you know what I mean? So be kind, because you never know where your ripples are going to end up. So like, if tears don't come down your cheeks, it doesn't count.
You have already heard the song because it was in the background. He's definitely one to look up, and I always love to give him a plug. Kind of leads me on to, on all of the challenges, I've always thought to myself, does this really make a difference? You know, like in the video, and those that know the longer story and those that don't, you know, the summary of why I do this is I ask people to do an act of kindness for a stranger, to show their support rather than donate money to charity. And there is nothing wrong with donating money to charity, but there's something much more powerful about human connection and us coming together within societies and communities. But when I'm out doing these ridiculous things, it's very hard to really connect and hear these impacts. You know, John gave me a beautiful example of the impact to him, but also then spread that conversation of kindness out to the room of people that he was playing to. And so it goes on, the conversation continues. And I just want to read a short little bit from the book about one of those stories that I think that you'll probably really like. I relentlessly pestered the BBC Midlands news desk in the hope that the 500-mile challenge would be covered. Press and media are always a challenge. I did too many radio interviews to mention and a number of TV interviews, but for me, it was never enough. How do I change the narrative that we continue to live by? How do I encourage people to see the inherent flaws in measuring success by money? Why do we keep striving for more of something that doesn't bring us true happiness? I wrote to media stations and kept chasing until someone responded. It was hard work, and I realized I needed to start asking myself some all-important questions. What did I hope would happen if I was featured? And how did I expect the world to change as a result? If I'm honest, I wasn't sure. I knew the answers. I was blindly pushing forwards, hoping something would stick, and maybe for now that was enough. Eventually, my perseverance with the BBC Midlands paid off. They needed a positive story, as the whole news day had been doom and gloom. Due to familiarity and because I care very little about what people think about me, I'm relatively unfazed by interviews. I neither look forward to them or feel unnerved by them. My message is so simple: recognize and promote the power of kindness in society. However, sitting on the red sofa with the legendary Nick Owen was surreal. I grew up watching him on TV and suddenly sat in clothes I'd spent the last 3 weeks in, with my hair in scruffy plaits. I felt overwhelmingly underdressed for the occasion. Nick was incredibly welcoming from the start, making a beeline for me to introduce himself when I arrived at the studio, clearly wanting to put me at ease. Eventually, a kind lady led me through to the open plan waiting area where a group of reporters sat. I was given a cup of tea to drink while I waited. I sat quietly, listening to the reporters talk about assignments, equipment, and what tomorrow might bring for them. I used the time to breathe slowly, evenly, and deeply. Nick entered the seated area and attempted to set up a TV screen in the waiting area so I would watch what was happening on the program before my slot at the end of the schedule. When he couldn't get it working, he called over one of the team to help. When they were unable to fix it, another person was called. When there were 4 people gathered around the TV, all attempting to get it to work, Nick said, "You'd never think we all work for the BBC. We can't even get a TV up and working." I laughed, everyone smiled and joked along. He was jovial, quick, and most of all kind, making me feel at ease as much as he could. Somewhere near Stoke-on-Trent, I discovered the power of that news story. The sun was shining, it was a weekend, and the people milled on and off the canal path. I was headed north. As I continued walking one foot in front of the other in a steady rhythm, A little blonde boy of about 8 cycled past as if his life depended on it. Just behind, a fair-haired lady followed on her own bike, with a little less wild enthusiasm. As she cycled past, she glanced at me and slammed on her brakes, screeching to a halt. "Henry! Henry, stop! It's the lady from the TV!" The duo turned themselves around and headed back to me. "Hi, lovely to meet you," I said with a welcoming smile. "We saw you on the TV, didn't we, Henry? We love what you're doing." Henry looked up at me blankly, blinking. "Tell the lady what you've been doing since we saw her." Henry just kept looking up at me, wide-eyed and silent. I smiled at him. Nothing. "Shall I tell her?" the woman offered. He looked at her and nodded. The resemblance, even without the same sandy-coloured hair, was striking. Henry had been making little treasure chests and gifting them to his friends. We've been getting lots of messages from parents who have said how happy it has made their children when they've come home from school. I got down to his level. "Wow, that sounds very kind. So it's made your friends really happy, has it?" He nodded, just a little nod. "Wow," I said. "Do you know, because you made them happy with your kindness, they might now be kind to other people and make them happy too." Henry looked up, past me and into the sky. His eyes widened as though a penny was dropping for him, that he was realizing for the first time that his actions had the power to influence others, and he had chosen to use that power well. And it's amazing because there is story after story after story that gives me that confirmation, and that the message of kindness and the conversation that continued to drive, not really me, the Sunshine people who follow the challenges and share all the posts, and that the conversation of human connection makes such a difference to not only each other, but our generations coming up through the ranks, to make sure that we connect and we consider each other a little bit more. So I would just love to hear any questions that anyone's got. Please do write them in the comments. I have already been sent a few questions, so I will maybe start with one of those. The first one that came through, there were quite a few actually, but the first one was, do you keep a journal when you are not on a challenge? And if so, in what format? On phone, notepad, etc.? Which I think is an absolutely cracking question, really. So writing the book, I will say I used a group called the London Writers Salon, which you can Google if you want to, if you're interested in writing or getting into any sort of rhythm with writing. And they started and they meet. They started when COVID happened, and they meet on Zoom. And you there's just a lot of faces there, but it really holds you accountable. And so I did a lot of that. I went onto their kind of 8 a.m.s and really use that to do it. I always use my phone in my notes section, and every time I think of something slightly profound or thoughtful around a day or a lighting or a moment in time, I make notes about it, and then I write book or writing, so I can search back on it, because I use my notes in my phone a lot. I find that when you're doing the adventures, that there's just not room for anything really. So my phone is everything. I use it to read books. I use it to write. I was writing a lot because I had my laptop with me as well. So I was writing a lot as I was going along, because particularly when I was doing the Elliptigo challenge, because I was working as I was going along as well. So I had client meetings and things that I had to juggle in between, which seems bonkers really, and some reports and things that I needed to do. So um, which obviously doesn't come out all that often. But yes, and did you feel more vulnerable or empowered after putting it down into The Accidental Adventurer? Is there anything you would do differently in your next book? Do you know, there was so much that I wanted to share within the book. I think some people will have read the first book I ever wrote, which in comparison to this is probably not very good, really, but we grow and develop, don't we? So writing 44 Rays of Sunshine really was therapeutic for me, because my whole heart went into that, in the grief that I went through after losing Paul, which was really the start of why this all happened. But what I found very therapeutic about this was the beauty of the words that I could find. You know, there are beautiful sentences within this. There's beautiful ways that I've described things that I have never really done. I've done in my own head, but yeah, it became something really. I think when you go and put a book out, you write the book, but then when you're actually really serious about it and you want the world to read it, that's incredibly hard, because you don't know if anyone will actually read it and like it, or whether it's just, you know, your friends and family that read it and go, well, we love it because we love her. So yeah, putting the word out and spreading the word about the book is the hardest bit, I think. You know, doing these are incredibly tough. Did you ever think about including photos, maps, etc. within the book? There are no photos or maps within the book. And no, I didn't actually. I certainly will go and ask people, would they have preferred that, and would that have helped? Would they have found it insightful? So that's interesting. Do let me know in the comments whether you would have, if you've already read it, but whether you would have enjoyed pictures in there. What was the hardest part? Oh, thank you, Laura. That's very, very kind. I'll put that comment up. So what was the hardest part of the writing process for you? You know, as I said, this was 120,000 words, and finishing it and spending months and months writing all of this down, putting it all out there, was tough. To get back 6 pages of notes, beautifully written, really notes that needed to happen, I think was humbling, was a huge lesson for me. I can remember going to my father and saying to my father, it's not very good, the book's not very good. And I had tears, you know, I was sad. And he said, well, very indignantly on my behalf, well, are the comments correct? And I said, yes, they are absolutely correct. You know, everything that's been said needs some action. It needs to be changed. But I'm just sad about that right now. I'm sad that I've put so much effort in, and that ultimately I need to go back to the drawing board. And so if that lesson in writing, the hardest part of the writing process was going back to the beginning and starting again, but it has made this book worthy of something, I think. And thank you, Laura, for that, who also came in and did the precision edit so beautifully. Yeah, there's so much. If I was to do the book again, somebody asked me about what I've learned and what I would do again. I would write it better the first time. I wouldn't allow myself to make the mistakes that I did. I would structure it better, but that's part of it. You know, that's part of that learning all the time. Thank you so much, Sarah. So out of all of your challenges, which one has meant the most to you? Ooh. That's incredibly tough. That's incredibly tough. So without spoiling the end of the book, there was a challenge that I did that was not a big challenge. It was a small challenge that I did of 20 miles on a borrowed bike with a foster child that I had at the time. And that journey, without ruining them, because it's in the conclusion, I don't want to ruin the end of the book. I think that even though it was the smallest challenge, it meant the most because it taught me so much and taught her so much. It doesn't always have to be the big things that make a difference, I've learned. So I think that one was probably meant the most to me. So Hilary says, I like pictures in these types of books. I should keep more pictures. If I've got another question here, but do ask more questions, and we'll kind of probably be wrapping up in about 5 minutes. If you could choose 3 people in the world to read your book, who would they be and why? Do you know, today I was talking to my mum and we were talking about her mum, who was she was so enthusiastic. Anything I did, she was always so proud. And I think if I could ask her to read it, I think that would just be wonderful. I was thinking that today. It would be wonderful for her to read the book. I've actually dedicated the book to the reader of every book. And what I say in it is, this is dedicated to you, the reader of this book. I hope when you finish it, you will understand why. For me, it's really about, the book has been written for every person who has an inner chatter in their own mind, like I do, of not feeling good enough, feeling like, oh, well, I can't do that. It's too big. The challenge is too big. There's 1,000 different things. Everyone's stories has this inner chatter that often stops them from doing what they really want to do. And so this book has been written for you and from my experiences and learning that over the last 10 years. So I think, yeah, everybody, but certainly my grandmother as well, I think. Yeah, I absolutely love the small challenge that you mentioned in the conclusion. Yes, we don't want to put a spoiler alert for anybody. And I love the details of the challenges. There's so much to share. I mean, I could have spent hours talking about the book, but I guess, you know, I hope that you will buy the book and that you will enjoy it. And of course, from there as well, that you will also that you will share it and share your reviews honestly and kindly, because it all matters. You know, I need to know the feedback because it will make me a better writer. But you can get your copy of The Accidental Adventurer. You can pop over onto nahalasummers.com. All good bookshops should be stocking it. I haven't had the confirmation, but it should be happening on the 1st or the 2nd. So you should be able to order from them, and Amazon and everywhere else as well. So Amazon, you'll be able to order tomorrow. And you can follow on any of these. I talk about kindness in the workplace, on a culture of kindness, which is what my job is. And of course, the Sunshine People community continues to get bigger and bigger. Now, anybody who is looking for something on World Kindness Day to do, you can make your own heart, join up on the Strava challenge. And I think it might be showing you, I'm going to click in and see whether this works. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Yay! So you can join the World Kindness Day Heart Challenge here. It will speed up and there will be a button just coming up, just like that, like magic. You can join up. We don't send out loads of newsletters, but when there's something really exciting happening and when my next challenge comes up, you guys will know about it. But you can click into here, join the Strava group, and be part of the challenge. I hope that today has, this past hour has kind of given you something new to think about, even those people who have been kind enough to follow the challenges and do some extraordinary acts of kindness along the way. I am incredibly grateful for your support. Not sure that I can take you back, so I'll just take you back to mine. And yeah, thank you so much for everything. Please do, if you have got a book or you are going to buy a book, please put a review on there online somewhere, on Amazon, on anywhere really, because it makes a huge difference and it starts people going, oh, that might be interesting. So any reviews, any thoughts about the book? It's not really just an adventure book. The reviews that have come in have said it's a way of life, and it's almost that it's thinking in a whole different way. So I really, really hope that you will enjoy it. Thanks so much, guys, for joining. There will be a live talk at the White Hart in my hometown in Stemston Newton tomorrow, and I hope people will come and join in at 7 o'clock, but come earlier and grab food. They do great food there. And yeah, thank you so much. Bye.